I grabbed everything from my wife when she cheated on me with her coworkers. We should constantly be ready for both the best and the worst in life. The way that one moment can either bring your life together or cause it to come apart, as it did for me, is erratic and startling. I'm 36 years old, and I married my best friend's sister 10 years ago. We also dated for 4 years, but I've known her since we were about 5. We can be referred to as childhood sweethearts. I'll name her Candace, 33F. She was not only my girlfriend, but also my childhood crush and the only lady I ever saw. Our dating days were both bittersweet and sweet because we nearly ended our friendship with Jacob, her brother. Furthermore, I thought of her as my soulmate until she voluntarily chose to breach our soul contract, ruining both our children and my lives. We never lost our love, and our marriage was going well. My demands were always met by her, and I reciprocated. We have a 6-year-old kid together, and she is an excellent mother. I had second thoughts about suspecting her for something so filthy because she is normally quite kind to everyone and has a very empathetic character. Since I work as a lawyer and am constantly working on various cases, I tend to spend more time in my chamber with my case files and less time with my wife. Nevertheless, I always make sure to be there for her, to make every moment memorable, and to make her feel the same way she did on that day 10 years ago. She replied, yes, right away, when I asked whether she wanted to marry me. Although Candace is constantly present and focused on her work as an assistant manager at my brother's company, she has never let that stop her from being a good wife and mother. Things had been really difficult, with frequent arguments, ever since she was promoted to assistant manager in a different branch. She had been arriving home later than normal, and I assumed this was because she was getting used to a new branch and new coworkers. But as the day went on, my uncertainty and anxiety grew. She was dropped off by her buddy since she couldn't walk, and arrived home pretty inebriated. I've already taken Candace to our room and put our daughter to bed. I noticed something while I was getting her dressed. On her shoulder and on her back, I noticed 2 enormous hickeys. My stomach churned, and I started to feel anxious and had a number of other questions about how and why. I relaxed, maintained my composure, and allowed myself to not question or second-guess her. My thoughts were still focused on those hickeys and how she obtained them as I made my way to the living room to begin getting ready for tomorrow's case. After giving it some thought, I made the decision to speak with her the following day before she left for work. I was already annoyed by her aloof and agitated demeanor, and these minor details were just the icing on the cake. After 10 years of sweetness, I had no idea that our marriage would turn sour. Perhaps it was simply a phase. Her phone was buzzing non-stop every second as I entered our bedroom. I went to the counter and attempted to examine her phone since I was wondering who might be texting her. This time, Candace's phone was locked, something she had never done in our 10 years of marriage. I found myself thinking about our lives, our daughter, and everything we had in common once more. After returning the phone to the counter, I stepped outside to prepare for the case of the day. I entered the kitchen and began making our daughter and Candace breakfast. As soon as I set the dishes on the table, I felt a quick embrace from behind. Candace was grinning and giving me a tight hug as I turned around. I relaxed after giving her a hug in return, but something else crossed my thoughts. Her hair smelt like smoke, as if she were smoking, and she always wore a rose and vanilla blended perfume. Today, however, she smelled like men's perfume. I didn't give her a hug in return because of all these small nuances. She was in a very good mood and sat in front of me at the dining table, all smiles. However, I wasn't content. I then questioned her about the source of her joy. I prepared her breakfast, and she told me it made her happy. Last night, I couldn't help but wonder where she was. So I did in the end. A grin slipped from her face. She expressed regret and admitted that she had neglected to tell me about the welcome party at her new workplace, where she was trying to abstain from alcohol, but ultimately ended up indulging. She appeared suspicious and afraid. I questioned her about when she started locking her phone and where she acquired all those hickeys on her back. She sprang to her feet, placed a hand on her head, and began frantically grabbing her hair. I sprinted in her direction and attempted to stop her. She was sobbing and yelling as loudly as she could. Her actions made me feel afraid. She said that I was doubting her for effing someone and was not appreciating the effort she had been making. She accused me of being insensitive because I assumed it was a hickey and didn't care to inquire about the marks. She claimed to have been burned by a cigarette in the club. Anybody in my house would have probably done the same thing. She interrupted me before I could say anything further, stating that she had to lock her phone due to office files on it and that my birth date was the password. I went to work after all the yelling and yelling. I kept coming up with new ideas while working, and I wanted to discuss them with my brother James. I tried to ignore it, though, because our marital privacy was another thing that would aggravate Candace. I'm not sure, but I thought Candace's actions were rather suspect. When I returned home, Lily, our young daughter, was playing with her toys. I could hear Candace laughing and conversing with someone in the bedroom. She was laughing more flirtatiously than amusingly. I heard her ask, "How red is it?" as I made my way to the room. What was she discussing? Giggling. She hung up the phone and pretended to chuckle as soon as I opened the door. She became frightened. I pretended to be looking for something and asked her to whom she was speaking. Saying it was only a buddy, she shrugged and walked out of the room. Not at all. It was more than just a companion. She was gaslighting me into changing my mind. And there was definitely something wrong with the way she was acting. She had on a backless shirt that night, and I could see her hickey. It was red and quite dark. It wasn't a burn either. I'm sure I love her. However, I can't let her pull her tea under my nose and behave like a naive romantic. It's impossible for me to avoid suspecting her. Update 1. My last update was 3 weeks ago. After viewing those hickeys, as she termed them, I found it difficult to accomplish anything. Let me assure you, I wasn't overanalyzing. My hunch was correct. One day, after Candace went to bed, I stayed up to monitor her phone since she kept up her shady actions. I was working in the living room that evening. Additionally, she spent 2 hours in a row using her phone. While texting someone, you appear anxious. She was only going to lie directly to me, so I didn't inquire. An hour later, she was in our bedroom, soundly dozing. We haven't had sex in a month, let me tell you all, even on the days when I attempted to start it. She claimed to be exhausted, but I never allowed that to be the basis for our disagreement. The phone began to buzz just as I was about to get it. It was also an unidentified number, phoning her. I answered the phone after taking it outside the room. I nearly puked when I heard a woman on the other end yelling something. The woman was yelling that she had located her number at last, and she would inform everyone in the office and lose her job if she didn't stop cheating on her husband. I informed her that there might have been a misunderstanding and that I was her spouse as soon as she had finished speaking. The woman, Jenny, was married to Matthew, Candace's coworker at the same company. She requested me to meet with her and provided me her address because she wanted to tell me something. Let me tell you, getting stabbed by the person who swore to support you for the rest of your life is the worst thing that can happen in life. I prayed and hoped that all of my presumptions would be wrong during this entire time. I didn't want to believe that she was sleeping with her coworker on the days she refused to sleep with me since I loved her. I went to see Jenny the following day. I felt sorry for her because she was younger than Candace and me and pregnant. Her pregnancy was 8 months along. She informed me about her husband's infidelity with Candace. She had tears in her eyes, but for some reason, I was unable to cry and just had rage. My wife was involved in what felt like a terrible and cruel thing to do to your pregnant wife. When she clicked on the tab, she saw explicit pictures and a video of Matthew and Candace having sex. Jenny and Matthew got into a fight last night when Jenny obtained the videos from Matthew's phone. Jenny texted someone last night because she was anxious about it. I sobbed uncontrollably as I tasted bile in my mouth. I promised her that Candace would pay for destroying her home, so I requested her to send me all those photos. She informed me that she would be pursuing a divorce. However, I purposely asked her to hold off for a few days so she could also take pleasure in the catastrophe. I drove to my brother's house after leaving Jenny's. He has been a wonderful advisor to me throughout my life and has 2 children. Sitting next to him, I drank a lot until I passed out. When I awoke 2 hours later with a pounding headache, My brother was on the couch massaging my feet. He began asking me several questions after I had a warm cup of espresso, and I was unable to understand any of them. I instructed him to open the gallery and check out what was within after handing him my phone. He put the phone on the table right away, looking disgusted. I filled him in on everything. He then cut me off and revealed further details, including the fact that she had cheated on me prior to the promotion. Matthew led her squad on her former team, so she might be able to do that to advance. I should have mentioned Candace's greed, but I forgot. She made her own money and always purchased her belongings. She was never a gold digger. However, she was avaricious for status and attention. And if that were the case, I wasn't shocked. The business was owned by James. But that's a different story. His wife, Rose, was partially crippled, so he always worked from home. In any case, he makes a wonderful husband and brother. I questioned him about why he had not told me all of this. He stated that he was looking into the situation and didn't want to act on the rumors. He stayed silent since he lacked any supporting proof. I had already rehearsed acting as though nothing had happened before I got home. Lily ran over to me as I entered, and I gimped as I embraced her. Candace approached me, planted a kiss on my lips, and joyfully informed me that she had prepared my favorite lasagna. I wanted to throw up. It was difficult to eat with her after the meal, and I wanted this to be over as quickly as possible. She is a narcissist, wicked, and a tremendous gaslighter. I was entering my workplace. However, Candace gave me a back embrace. I looked in her direction. She was dressed in her slip dress made of red satin. She was gorgeous once. However, I found it difficult to look at her today because she looked so repulsive. She inquired as to whether or not I answered the phone yesterday night, which I promptly refused. She asked me again and assured me that she wouldn't be upset if I spoke the truth. I wasn't a fool, though. I kissed her lips and disagreed once more. I was lying and gaslighting the situation, just like she had done. Lily had slept, she said in my ear as she shoved me into the bed. I inquired if she was experiencing her typical level of fatigue. She rejected after giving me a disbelieving glance. I made an effort to resist. However, I caved. I did it to later embarrass her as well. When she realizes that I already knew about the SHTS, she pulled, and how fucking filthy she is, it will hit her hard. We had the most exciting sex ever. Furthermore, I didn't feel bad about how it would make her feel. She was playing with my feelings. So I made use of her this time. She dozed out, and I removed my arm from beneath her head, walked out of the room. I made my way to my workplace. James had left me 3 missed calls. I returned his call. He also requested that we meet tomorrow, because he couldn't tell me over the phone. I entered Lily's room and gave her a look. I felt awful, and I felt like killing Candace because I was so upset at her for it. How could she take away our joy and the childhood of her own daughter? The thought of what is ahead for me keeps me up at night. Once I've finished everything, I'll provide another update. Update 2. I apologize for not updating you all sooner. I was really busy getting my wife a job, as well as the divorce status. I therefore considered updating after everything was in order, rather than on a regular basis. I took a car to James in the morning. He was also at the office of the business. James showed me a computer screen. There were photos of Candace with several males, including Richard, her team leader from our school. As previously stated, James was looking into the situation and discovered that Candace was having affairs with other people in addition to Matthew. Candace was a pretty easy woman, as the staff had admitted to James. She also used to accompany them to the club. Richard promised to elevate her to assistant manager, so she had sex with him, which he carried out. She followed suit with Matthew. James videotaped the exchange for the company's jurors. Due to the company's stringent no-dating policies, many employees will lose their jobs. In addition to Candace was stunning. She knew how to capitalize on the fact that she was always attractive. James emailed the other branch, where Candace and Matthew were either effing or working. I sat there in despair half the time because I didn't know what to do. Candace began phoning me as soon as the branch got the email. She wanted me to come home right away when I answered the phone. I informed James before making my way home. Candace was crying when I walked inside. She began to cry and gave me a hug. I didn't return her hug. She gave me a look and claimed that something caused her to lose her job. I started making up stories after asking her why. I pushed her away and asked if she wanted me to show her video of effing her coworkers on the TV or if she wanted to quit lying. She gave me a disbelieving look, and I informed her that Jenny had told me everything. After giving me a brief glance, she began gaslighting me once more, claiming that I was constantly preoccupied with work and never present. She was unable to resist. Lily entered, and she was about to be taken by Candace. However, I intervened at that point to prevent her from acting phony worries about us. I informed her that she had been sacked from her job because I had already filed for divorce. Our daughter will be under my care, and I will have custody of her. I practice law. I was therefore able to complete tasks more easily. She began to wail and sob, pleading with me to help her resolve this. I was furious about it, and since she didn't feel sorry for what had happened, I asked her how she might make things better. To spare Lily from having to see such things, I begged James to take her to his house. I felt awful for my young daughter when she was born. I was pleased with her prospects. She was also fortunate to have two parents, being brought up by just one parent. I didn't want my daughter to experience the same thing in her life. If Candace wants to tell her brother, I asked Jacob, my closest companion, regarding this, and she became frightened. To end this, I handed her the divorce document and asked her to sign it. Just before she signed, she was pleasantly surprised. Mom, her parents, her brother also arrived. He also came up with the plan to make fun of her for what she had done. The house bears my daughter's name. Thus, Candace's only assets were her savings and personal funds. Her folks adored me, and her behavior disgusted and disappointed them. Jacob explained to her that he was opposed to our marriage because he believed she would destroy the family and me, and she validated his assertion. Ultimately, she was well known to her brother. She was adored by my mother as her daughter. She comforted her and wiped away her tears there as well. After reading the divorce papers, I informed Candace that she was welcome to stay at this place with Lily and to come visit. And Lily would never be taken from her by me. Before this, Jacob had already seen her photos, not the vulgar ones though, and to tell the truth, I don't respect her at all. If it had only happened once, I could have forgiven her, but when she does something wrong, I can't. Just one thing. And it's a different matter entirely to feel proud and carry on, and she decided to destroy it by herself. I admit that there were moments when I was too busy to take her out or spend time with her. However, I tried my hardest and gained knowledge from it when I attempted to give her some time. I suppose I was running late. Being blind prevented me from seeing her egotistical side. However, I will never forget those two hickeys. Anyway, whatever occurred cannot be reversed. I do miss her from before. I was asked whether I wanted to spend some time with my mother. I informed her that I would be residing here and that I would not. However, she will now remain with me. Candace received a lot of harsh words and reprimands from her parents. They were doctors and authors who were highly respectable. She also tarnished their reputations and names. Jenny, conversely, however, got divorced as well and moved to live with her parents in a neighboring city. After the divorce, things were somewhat challenging to manage, but after witnessing the fallout, I never lost the thrill of seeing her unemployed. Although Lily found it difficult, she enjoyed spending time with her grandmother, playing and coloring, and occasionally she was all upset because obviously the child is missing her mom. Regarding Candace, she now has the significant freedom to go out and routinely meet new men. She comes to see Lily every day, but we never met because I was always in my office when she arrived. From the window, I also witnessed Matthew dropping her off for a week, followed by someone else. Friends weren't the only ones involved. She got out of the car and kissed them properly. Was she that way all the time? I couldn't see since I was blind. And truthfully, gentlemen, I escaped a bullet, but after being together for 14 years, I'm still in disbelief, and if it weren't for the communication breakdown, I never would have guessed. Now, a month has passed. In addition, I have a lot of cases going on. After all, we did see and greet one another, and I'm taking medicine for anxiety and depression because I feel empty and depressed. Now more than ever, she is doing well with no regrets whatsoever. However, she occasionally experiences humiliation, which greatly pleases me. However, in the end, I want to express that she taught me a valuable lesson. and my only purpose was to reveal the true Candace behind the mask. Her parents despise her. Additionally, she is receiving humiliations from common friends instead of work. However, she continues to do what she does with great pride, but not including the others. All I want for my daughter is the greatest, a joyful upbringing, and a wonderful, love-filled future.